conversation and point me in the right direction.
Okay, everybody, could we come to order, please? Could we start tonight's meeting with apologies for absence?
Chairman, all members are present.
Thank you. Before I go on to the main business of the evening, I'd just like to record congratulations from the Cabinet to Her Majesty the Queen on her 90th birthday today, and on behalf of the people of Hillingdon to thank her for years of sterling service, dedicated service to this country. Agenda item 2 is a declaration of interest in matters before this meeting. Are there any declarations of interest? None. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is to approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting, shown on pages 1 to 12. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And to confirm that items of business marked Part 1 will be considered in public, and those items of business marked Part 2 will be in private. We have a short public agenda tonight in that we only have 2 papers to be held in the public section and 3 in the private section. The first of those papers is the monthly Council Budget Monitoring Report for month 11. It's on page 13 of the agenda. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. It's not often the Council budget gets this far up the agenda, but here we are tonight with a packed agenda, and here we are with the Council Budget Monitoring item. It's month 11, which is in fact the last month that we get reported of the year, because month 12 gets all collected up with the new year. And the news, of course, remains good, as we expect at the end of the year. There is a net in-year underspend of just over 2 million projected against general fund revenue, and this is an improvement of over £500,000 from the previous position. So it is a good news story. Now, the recommendations are shown at the bottom of page 13 and at the top, halfway down page 14, 1 to 9, and there is a 10th recommendation on the addendum sheet, and I move all 10 of them. I know that you will go through 1 or 2 of them in a few moments, but I think it's probably worth me just touching on the fact that, having got to this part of the year, it's always good to be able to look back from to see what's come out at the end of the year from where we started at the beginning. And it's good to know that we have arrived where we expected to, which is with a decent surplus over our budget, with the general fund balances projecting to get to 37.5 or more million, and that's after allowing for the release of 5 million to smooth the impact of government funding cuts. So this is it's a very good news story. It shows that we have once again delivered as we have said, and of course it is by delivering in these manners that enables us to do all the other things that we want to do and we know that our residents want us to do. Briefly on the capital front, you'll see on page 16 the projected underspend is of 31 million, of which favourable cost variances account for approximately 5.5, and the rest, approximately 26 million, is slippage on large projects. So this is a good story. We're spending money wisely, and those items of capital will be picked up in the following year. And on that note, I will move.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. As you say, the recommendations are note 1 that we note the position at month 11, and this position of being £2 million ahead of our budget at month 11 is exceedingly good, particularly when we know that when we get the month 12, which we won't get until the outturn in June, that surplus would increase even further. The recommendations 2 and 3 are mindful of the fact that we won't get another budget monitoring report until June, so the authorities that fall to myself, the Corporate Director, and the Chief Executive are being extended rather than the usual 1 month for 2 months on this occasion. They are to any budget environments or allocating of priority growth that are needed will fall to myself and the Director of Finance. The usual delegation of consultancy and agency assignments which come to myself and the Chief Executive. The detail for the period 17th March to 21st of April is shown on pages 56 to 59, and there are 8 new cases where agency assignments have now gone over £50,000, and there's a prize for the first member of executive scrutiny to find all 8. Recommendation 4 is the introduction of a fine, a new fine that we are going to levy up to a maximum of £5,000 for any letting property management agent refusing to join a government-approved redress scheme. There's a lot more property letting, as we know, a lot more agencies being set up, and they're obliged to join a proper redress scheme if their clients have an issue, and those that don't join will be fined. Recommendation 5 is to approve a commitment of £50,000 to the Uxbridge Bid Company. This is to assist in securing a business improvement district for Uxbridge. It is in effect a loan to this new organisation, which we are greatly supportive of, and will be part of the steering group. Recommendation 6, to approve acceptance of planning performance agreements. There are 2 here, and these are planning agreements which are required to fund dedicated staff to deal with those agreements. To ratify the release of funds from development risk and contingency for legal proceedings on a recent planning matter. It says recent, but it's been going on for years, as a number of these things do, and it's come to a stage now where it can be settled. We've included it in part 1 of the proceedings, but it is a confidentiality agreement, so we can't disclose the amount involved, although I am extremely happy with the settlement figure, and I'm not easy to please. The recommendation 8, again, is the introduction of some new planning fees. These are requests for confirmation of compliance with an enforcement notice and requests to withdraw an extant enforcement notice. There will be fines levied in those cases. And recommendation 9 is to approve the introduction of some new registrar's fees. Things like webcasting of weddings is now becoming quite popular, and we want to introduce that and charge a fee for it. Recommendation 10, which is on the addendum sheet, I will ask Councillor Mills to explain.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just also reiterate in terms of the Uxbridge Business Improvement District, as you absolutely said, we've been invited to join the steering group, but it isn't a council initiative. It is a business initiative. We are just providing this loan to help them get to the stage where they can go to a formal vote of all businesses in Uxbridge and become a fully fledged development zone. Recommendation 10, this is the requirement that allows us to discuss with the Borough Commander the allocation of resources that we wish to give them in terms of our community safety grant, and to report back in June with that precise allocation. In the past, and I don't imagine it will be too different going forward, this will be giving support to the local policing teams across the borough, and also to the domestic abuse support unit that the police operate, and also providing them with sufficient amount of capacity to run operations throughout the borough, which in the past have been highly successful in eliminating a number of undesirable people from the public system. And we will also be reporting back in June about the ongoing tasking teams that we employ, or the police employ, with our resources both north and south of the A40, which have gone a long way, not only to redress the fear of crime, but to make significant inroads in the number of crimes in this borough falling to be one of the best in London.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. A few other points to note. The paragraph 14 mentions the collection fund. This is business rates and council tax. As we have been noting through the year, we have a surplus on the council tax collection. We have collected now £2 million more than we originally thought we would. We suffer far less in bad debts on our council tax collection. We do hear from time to time about difficulty of people paying their council tax, and we can understand that, but as a borough that's frozen it year on year, that probably has something to do with the fact that we have £2 million more in our council tax account than we anticipated. 1.5 million of that will go into the current year's budget, and £500,000 will go forward into 17-18. A good, sound financial position at month 11, which will improve at month 12. Are the recommendations agreed? Oh, sorry, Councillor Simmons, you did indicate.
Well, thank you, Leader. I think we will agree the recommendations. I certainly will. I was going to make reference to the point about the asylum service, which is referred to on page 32, which has been a bit of a running issue within our budget settlement. The Home Office have been saying for about the past 3 months that we should expect some correspondence about this. They're now saying that due to PERDA, they're not in a position to give us any further detail, which is to say the least, not helpful. But I understand from the leader of Croydon Council that they have settled their position, and certainly in conversation with the director today, it seems we need to consider what the appropriate next steps might be in seeking to resolve this, because I think it's hard for government to argue rationally that having restored the budget cuts which they made last year in this respect for Croydon, that they should not do the same for Hillingdon, given that we are part of the same gateway agreement model which determines the funding rate. Now, clearly, there is a lot of more national context to that, including the announcement today about resettlement of children from Syria. But I just wanted Cabinet to be aware that we will continue to beaver away to get this issue resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Any other comments? The recommendations agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 6, page 61, the School Capital Programme update. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Leader. Schools provision is clearly something which is subject to a lot of external debate at the moment. But now and for the foreseeable future, the provision of school places remains a statutory duty of Hillingdon, as it does of all local authorities. So this report updates us with the progress that we're making with those things for which we are directly responsible. It does make passing reference at page 63 in particular to new free schools, which are certainly something which we're getting inquiries about. They face the same challenges that we do, in that they would need to identify appropriate sites, most of which will not be owned by those potential providers, and consider what the planning process would be to deliver them within the borough. But the part that remains within Hillingdon's ambit continues to make very good progress. And by way of an update on Abbotsfield and Swakeleys, I know thanks to the input of the Director of Finance and the Borough Solicitor, a letter of agreement has been sent today to the Education Funding Agency, which, subject to their being able to sign that, will enable us to get that project underway very, very quickly. With those comments, I move the recommendations.
Thank you. Any comments? Recommendations agreed? Thank you. We now move to part 2 of the agenda.